Hey, before I start talking about Canada, I just want to give a message to our Protestant brothers and sisters. I spend most of my time in this channel trying to convince you guys to leave your Protestant traditions behind and come back to the ancient church that Jesus Christ established, the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. But on this issue, the government trying to go after religious freedom, we need to stand arm in arm. We need to stand together. And when they try to shut our churches down and take away our religious liberties, we don't say no. We say hell no. You know, we got to fight for our religious freedom now like never before. And, you know, you might think Canada is a lot different, but the same mentality that Justin Trudeu has, Joe Biden and the entire Democrat Party, except maybe Joe Manchin. He's probably the only sane person left in that party. Even though he's a liberal on most issues, I think on religious freedom we could count on him. But I don't know. But what's going on in Canada is really scary. You know, these Canadian truckers just want the right to work. They want the freedom to choose whether they put a medicine in their body or not. And, you know, the media, the free press in America that once stood against the man, that once stood against the government, is become the government mouthpiece. It's like, you know, it's like China, you know, it really is. And I'll tell you why that's not surprising in a minute. But they're making these guys to be anti-vax, terrorists. 90% of these truckers are vaxxed. They're not against, 90% of them aren't against the vaccine. But 100% of them are against the government telling them that if they don't get vaccinated, they're gonna lose their jobs. I mean, for them, they go back and forth from Canada to America. And every time they come into Canada, if they don't show a vax card, they got to be quarantined for 10 days. They can't work. These guys are going to lose their jobs if that happens. They're not going to be able to do that. You know, even if they're owner-operators, they're going to lose so much money, you know, every time that happens. So he's shutting them down. And he actually came out yesterday. They came out and said, you know, anyone sending money to these truckers, you see, first, GoFundMe, you know, all these big tech companies, these American big tech companies, they're run by liberals, you know, Democrat liberals that hate freedom too. They like to control us. They're arm in arm with the, you know, liberal Democrats in America and the left in Canada. And they actually stole like $11 million people were donating to these truckers. Because you see, these truckers are parked, peacefully protesting, literally peacefully protesting, not like the Black Lives Matter terrorists that were burning police stations and courts and killed 35 people, and the media said they were peaceful protesters. And Kamala Harris, our vice president, was encouraging people to bail out these terrorists, Black Lives Matter, after they were shooting cops and killing men and raping women. These guys are actually blue-collar guys, hardworking guys that just want to be left alone and do their job. But to the left, we're terrorists. Us blue-collar guys are terrorists. You know, Hillary Clinton called us deplorables. You know, Barack Obama called us bitter clingers. You know, I could go down the list of how these people look up. They disdain hardworking Americans. They're the elite. The Democrat Party and the left in Canada have become the elite class. They think they're better than us. Rules for thee and not for me. You see them all maskless when they're forcing our children to wear masks. This is what we're dealing with. The worst of the worst. So Trudeau comes out. So first, GoFundMe steals the $11 million people donated to these truckers because it's cold in Canada. And these guys are living in the truck. So they need to keep, you know, the trucks running to keep the heat on. So people were sending money to help them just get food and gas. First, Trudeau had the police steal the people's fuel tanks, you know, when they go to fuel them in. Then GoFundMe, you know, arm in arm. So we're not giving this money to these guys. These blue-collar guys are terrorists. We're going to choose a charity of our choice to give it to. And our rock star governor, Ron DeSantis in Florida, who's a freedom-loving man, seen how, you know, that this is bad. So he threatened to sue these guys. And so they gave the money back. They didn't give it to the truckers. They gave it back to the people who donated. So there's a Christian fund, I keep forgetting their name, that sends the money there. But now Trudeau said if you send it, you know, I guess if you're Canadian, they can't touch us yet. Your funds are going to be frozen by the Canadian government. The Canadian government, rather, is giving the banks the authority to freeze your funds, to lock your account down. This is what they do in communist China. This is what they do in Venezuela. It's not what you do in democracies. And if you're a trucker out there and they know it, they're going to freeze your funds. This is insane. And it's not surprising if you follow this guy Trudeau. Maybe 8 years ago, during his election time or whatever, they asked him on the news, and he wasn't shy about it, what government do you admire the most? No, it wasn't America. It wasn't England. It was China. He said, China. I admire the dictatorship. He used the word dictatorship. I admire the dictatorship in China because they can turn the economy around on the dime, and they can go greener faster. And this is what I've always said. The left uses the green movement. They're useful idiots like AOC who actually believe the Earth's going to end in 10 years if the government doesn't take control over industries and corporations. They use idiots like that. And I say that in a nice way. Useful idiots is a term Stalin used for the people that followed him. They don't get their real agenda. The real agenda is government control. So they scare the crap out of these ignorant people to think the world's going to end and the government needs to take control and they'll save the planet. Because most of these people don't believe in God, so their government is God. And the religion is either communism, socialism, or progressivism, or liberalism, whatever you want to call it. So they trust the government to save us. So that doesn't surprise me. So Trudeau says the most admired country in his eyes is China. He admires the dictatorship in China. And now he's acting like that dictator. And it shouldn't surprise you because just a year ago, Arthur Pawlowski, a pastor, was arrested and beaten and thrown into jail for preaching because the government said, again, for our safety, they're going to shut down the churches. And he refused. He said, you know, I came from communist Poland. Pope John Paul II suffered under communism in Poland. And when he became Pope, he worked hand in hand with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher to defeat the Soviet Union and the free people so they would be free to have religious freedom. And they just constantly harassed this guy Pawlowski. And it's no surprise that just the other day, he was going to go preach to the freedom, this freedom convoy, all these truckers. And they arrested him because they said that he was on suspicion of hate speech, on suspicions of hate speech. So now in Canada, if you talk about freedom, that's considered hate speech. You know, they already said if you talked about the biblical, pastors have been put in jail for discussing the biblical definition of marriage between one man and one woman. That's hate speech. And there's liberal campuses in America where that's hate speech. You know, so this isn't, you know, too surprising. But there's a video of this pastor getting pulled over. And they asked him why he was getting pulled over. And they said they have, quote, fresh charges against him. And he said, what are they? He said, get out. And he got out and they threw him into the snow and then handcuffed him. And then I seen a video of a Canadian man. He said, you know, I'm not a religious man. I'm actually an atheist. But I came to hear this guy speak and I met him. And he's the nicest, gentlest, kindest guy. And I think this is horrible that the Canadian government is attacking religious people for their religious beliefs and freedom-loving people. So this isn't so far-fetched that it can come here. I mean, they shut our churches down. Come on. You know, they shut our schools down. This is heavy-handedness of the government. We need to support those Canadian truckers. And we got to be aware. You know, they elected Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, and he turned that into a socialist hellhole. And this is why every Venezuelan in Florida, and there's a lot of them that escaped that hellhole and came to Florida. I know a lot of them. And they are all strong Trump supporters, because Trump was our most pro-religious freedom president we ever had. We're not saying he was the most religious or he's some saint, but he had common sense. This is what blue-collar guys love about him. He had common sense. He knew if a government went after religious freedom, everything else falls, because that's what all these governments do. They always, communist dictators always go after your religious freedom, your freedom of speech, and your freedom to bear arms. That's why the liberals hate the First and Second Amendment. They hate free speech, they hate freedom of religion, and they hate people having the right to carry a gun. They hate that. So, you know, so Biden would love to pull a Trudeau. He would love it. And China would love it. And he's a puppet of China. We know for a fact, this is public record, this isn't no conspiracy, that when Biden was the vice president of the United States, he used his influence to get he made $31 million. His family, you know, Hunter, the crackhead, made $31 million from China in business deals that we know about on paper. We don't know, you know, gifts like, you know, with Russia. Hunter got a $3 million diamond ring as a gift from the mayor of Russia, the mayor of Moscow. I mean, you know, he got like 20 million from Russia that we know about, So these guys are all compromised, you know, and the media is compromised. They get funding from China. And this is all known. I did videos about this, you know, even on both sides. This is why everybody hated Trump, other than the working class guy with common sense. Mitch McConnell has a Chinese shipping company. It's in his wife's name. They all do that, you know, it's their wife's business. And China supplies the crew. China could shut down his $1 million business in a heartbeat. So he's got to be nice to China too. Nancy Pelosi's husband has tens of $millions invested in China. So she's got to be nice to China. So we have greedy people on both sides. Trump was the only one that stood up to China. That's why he had every force working against him, you know? And just like Ronald Reagan and St. Pope John Paul II knew that the Soviet Union was the greatest threat to our freedom, Donald Trump knew that China was the greatest threat. They're the greatest threat right now. And Justin Trudeu is acting like the Chinese dictator. And, you know, what happens in Canada, just, you know, the America progressives follow. So this is why we got to stand up. We got to support those truckers. In 2022, we got to crush the Democrat communists in America. We got to crush them. I think we can win. We can win by like 70 seats. Honest to God, just watching the polls and knowing my history, we can win by 70 seats, and that will send a message. That will send a message, because it's no longer right and left. It's freedom-loving Americans against people that want a dictatorship. Even the most liberal people like Bill Maher and Jon Stewart are seeing the craziness of the cancel culture and the dictatorship in the government and their heavy-handedness. They're even being red-pilled. And everybody's talking about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was a Bernie bro. Joe Rogan supported Bernie Sanders. He's no conservative Republican, but he's a smart, honest guy that asks honest questions. So he knows, he sees the conspiracy with the media and the government coming against freedom. If you disagree, if you question, they want to take away our First Amendment right of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So support the Canadian truckers. You know, they were even taken to court, and the only crime these truckers were guilty of was honking their horns too loud. So the judge told them they can't honk their horns after 9 o'clock at night. Seriously, there's been no violence. If you see the videos, they have bouncy houses for the kids, their grandmas, their grandpas there. They got pizzas ovens. You know, it is truly a peaceful protest that the left knows nothing about, because all the protests of Antifa on the left and Black Lives Matter on the left left people dead, billions of dollars of damages, and they supported that. The Democrats and the media supported that. I mean, I remember an NBC reporter talking about this was a peaceful protest, and it was so ironic because there was a police car burning right behind him. He didn't notice it, but the footage was live, so he was beat. You know, it just showed what a lie. This is why the media in America has no respect. Everyone knows it's fake news. We don't say it's fake news because Donald Trump calls it fake news. Donald Trump calls it fake news because he's in touch with the average American blue-collar guy who's been calling it fake news for 20 years. So, you know I normally talk about religious things on this channel, but this is going to affect religious things. Our brothers and sisters in Canada need our prayer and support. A brave Polish pastor needs our prayer and support. If you're in Canada, I say stay strong. We're with you, and we're going to win this battle because there's more of us than there are of them. So God bless and stay Catholic.